and help with your homework on actually laying out a schedule for testing and implementation. There's also a data conversion in there. I should put that in there, data conversion, which is a common part of the implementation. So here's where we ended up last time. We ended up with our looking at a test plan. And remember the unit tests at multiple levels. Down in the pieces of software, you test those one at a time against, well, if you don't have the completed program 2, how are you going to test program 5 that goes with program 4 to be part of program 2? Well, you stub out the interaction with program 4, or if they're ready with their unit tests, you may actually work with the developer. Probably it may be you or maybe another developer working on this part of the program. You say, okay, my part's ready. Let's unit test our systems against each other, rather than having to write a stub for any communication to program 4. If that's not ready, well, you got to write stubs, or this developer is responsible for helping you write the stub. Harley, what's a stub? John, what's a stub? Any idea?
I haven't read the chapter yet.
Does anybody have a clue what a stub is?
It's like code you write in that stands in place of unfinished codes that
Yeah.
you can test what you actually want to test.
Yeah, it's like pretend code that returns a result that it was supposed to return. Like here's the known result you're supposed to get from this data, and maybe a whole data set of what the known result should be, and you stub that out, say, okay, when I call this, I should get these packets. You could have collected perhaps from Wireshark or Packet Tracer, and packet capture something that, hey, this is what I expect when I get this over, when this is coming to me. What should I do with it? I handle that. Oh, it responded correctly. So we stub it out either with fake data or temporary functions, and then finally you integrate with the real code. So it better have the same number of parameters, the same type of result returned, and hopefully it's a reasonable set of expected results in the stub. So you can see just writing stub code it takes some expertise, because you have to know, okay, what is this supposed to return when he's completed it, and let me give you some code that will act like it's this code in the meantime. So most likely this person will write the stub to make sure, or at least verify that, yes, the stub is behaving the way the final program is supposed to work when I'm done with this part. And then you take the two parts, put them together, and you test them against other pieces, like, oh, what was this supposed to, this isn't done yet? Well, we better stub out that until we have that code working, until finally we do the overall system test. So stub code, integration test, and finally system tests. And this is where things can really get nasty, and this is where I was when I had my first job. These programmers, some were contractors. They didn't have so much commitment. There were others that were part of the company, and they weren't sure. They wanted some college guy helping to do the integration tests. So and that was a reasonable comment. And I remember sitting in the meeting. This guy, his name was Peter. He was like the guru programmer. Kind of greasy hair all the time, kind of disheveled, but he was the guru, and it didn't matter how we dressed. There were others were contractors. They came in with suit and ties, and you could tell they were the contractors. This guy, I remember in the meeting, why do we have this intern in compiling our code? And Tony, my boss, said, well, I'm making sure he does the right stuff and he doesn't screw up. And that was enough for him, and everyone kind of chuckled, and it was kind of fun just to see the interaction with these nerd programmers. As I'm learning, as I'm going to college, taking electrical engineering courses, and I was doing some programming on my own by then, but I didn't actually learn heavy-duty coding until I got into grad school. They had us do a couple of simple little Fortran programs in the electrical engineering. I had friends that did computer science and electrical engineering. I don't know if they made it. That was a pretty heavy program. So integration tests at many levels. That's part of the job if you're going into computer science. If you want a job coding, you want to understand how this all works. If you want to work on big projects, these will be things that you're going to be looking forward to. The exciting thing about this is once you're in unit test, you're getting close to actually having your completed product and getting paid and building your reputation as a good coder. So the next project you get on, they don't want to lay you off, and you get to have more of a say in the design of the program. And I'm hoping those of you that have the computer science programming skills, that will be something you do. Working on your own, you may do okay, but working in a bigger team, this is the part that's the exciting and can be very stressing part of the program, because there's deadlines that you're wanting to meet in order to get that final system test. Here's an example of a unit test in Python, where you have some testing library that has this assert function, where you basically say, if I have two things in there, are they equal? Well, I do another assert, hey, did it return true when it was supposed to? So you have all these assert functions, and you're checking to see, did I get the result that I expect in various ways? Did I get a true back? Did I get a false back? Did I get something that exists? Is the object actually there, or did I get a null returned? Or if I was supposed to have nothing returned. And then the code would look something like this in Python. I'm defining a function that adds two numbers together. Okay, I'm going to do the unit test on that code. Well, let's verify that, assert that when I add 1 and 2 together, that I do get 3. If this fails, the program will fail on the assert, and you'll say that unit test for adding 1 and 2 together failed for the add function. Suppose it worked great for that. Well, I better give it other data, adding two negative numbers together. I should get that value. So I'm constantly doing asserts, and just imagine all the input data that I want to test. This could be a text file that I read from, read the input data, what should I get for a resulting output, and blast through that test data. You can see that if I have a function that reads through test data, that could be a file full of millions of test points, and I make sure that everything that I expected as a result I got, and then build more of those test cases and just blast through it. Did I get the result I expected? Yes, the unit test passed. Next version of code, they made a fix to that code. Guess what? I have to go right back and run all those unit tests again. So you better know how to script these tests rather than writing a piece of code like this. I would be reading from a test file and just looping through it. While I have more data to test, do I get the result I expect? If there was ever a failure, put that in the next test data. I better check for where I failed last time. Do I get the expected results? So there's your whole test case, and in this case, they're doing a test case class. Test the add function. Does that make sense? Where I feed it data, verify, did I get the answer back I expected? In the documentation, there's multiple pieces, and that's why you're getting easy documentation compared to what actually happens in a real project, where you actually have to identify in your programming what happens in the modules. Here I'm having you do a little bit of this, of documenting in very general terms what your system's doing, but in a real documentation you have to go through every function and make sure it's carefully documented. How the thing works, that's your operations manual. How everything happens, and how you get output from your system. This again is in your capstone project, how your system is working. All through this, remember, this is what your user sees first. You're delivering your system, they're paying you big bucks for it. They want to know, what are they getting? If this is poorly written documentation, they're not going to want your product. Even if it's working fine, if they don't understand what it's doing, goodbye. So you better have documentation skills or hire someone that does it for you, because your product's not going to sell without your user understanding what they're getting, and documenting. Your documentation is what tells them that. You can hire people to do this. AI might help you to do it. Here's the code, generate documentation, but you're responsible for whatever it produces. If it produces bad documentation, doesn't matter how you produce it, you're responsible for bad documentation. So however you generate it, it better be good. And many people are going with the online. I hate the products that just say, hey, go to our user group. I'm thinking they just don't have a good product if that's how they don't have good documentation. This is what you often get with open source stuff, that the online documentation is where the open source kind of falls down, because you've got people that they built the product, they don't have time, and they're not as excited about writing documentation for the open source, get the software free people. They have a job by then and you're getting paid. Perhaps you could hire someone to help you document things. And this is another reason why I emphasize this in this course, that from the beginning of development, you've got to be writing good commented code so it can be documented clearly. Even you, when you come back to your code 2 months later, you're not going to remember what you were doing. So document what you were intending, and by then you'll have a better technique and maybe say, you know, I could have written this code better, but you know, the unit test is tomorrow. I'm not going to rewrite the code. Here's what happens, and very common, that poor or documentation or late documentation if you wait to throw it together at the end. That's why all along the way, good commenting, checking your data flow diagrams, verifying it, that will make your life better in the actual delivery of your product. And even at the start, if you do some good planning and documentation at the start, your code will be better because you have thought through and haven't just jumped right into compiling things and ignored the documentation part. You want to be doing code just to test concepts, but as you write the code into the system, document it all along the way. Now it's time, the exciting time for installation. And here's the thing where you have to think about all that has to happen when you're installing a system. You've got to have your test environment. You've got to somehow change over from the old system. If it's a new system, you can forget about this part, but most of the time you're replacing something, and you better have some plan for how do we replace what they're doing with that old system with what we have now, with what we're delivering. Converting data, this is part of your homework. We're going to do through an example little data conversion. And really it's more of a import data into our existing new system. But you can imagine there's a lot heavier duty stuff and a lot more data to convert than your simple little data conversion task in your homework. This part, you could hire someone to do this, but you better have the users trained. And remember, this is what your customer is going to see. This better be good. Even if you have a fantastic system, if they're not trained on it, they're going to think your system's horrible. And you realize, wait a minute, it all did what it was supposed to. They just didn't know what to do with it or how to use it. That reflects on all the programmers. So again, a reason to have good documentation so you can hire someone to do the training and not you be stuck doing the training because you didn't comment your code or document your code. They'll say, okay, sorry, you don't get to work on that new project. You still need to go train people because no one else knows how your code works. There's a wonderful program. John, you've seen that program I use at Awana, the display presentation, written in JavaScript. And did you dig through that code, John?
Say again?
Did you remember digging through that code of that display program for the overheads at Awana?
Yeah, yeah.
That code, it works pretty well, but that person was kind of his own programmer, wrote his own style, didn't comment much at all, if anything. And I got a call a few years later. Yeah, this is a real good person, but we need someone else for IT because no one else can. This guy, his code, no one else can read. He was a one person, wrote good code, but no one else could read his code. Smart. He eventually stopped coding. I think he got bored with it. He's so smart, he was bored with it. He went into tree trimming. I'm thinking maybe he just burnt out. But the code does a pretty good job. But John, you tried messing with it a little bit, and it broke pretty quickly, right? Because it was, you know, I'm not sure. There's others good coders that have tried to write a new version, and they did get very far. So it tells me it's a really good program. It's all written in JavaScript, and it's been out for, I think, almost 15 years now, and it works great for what it does and has some neat features. I figured out a few features in it, but I've broken it plenty of times trying to fix it. After you implement it, there's a few things left to do, the post-implementation tasks. So let's go over each of these things as we think about how we actually get the system to work. We have an operational environment, that's the delivered system, and we have a production environment. Operational is the hardware software. The production environment is what's actually going to be used. Or these are both the in-house production. This is our development environment where we are delivering or testing new things. In our Schoology system, they call it the sandbox. We actually have two Schoology systems. When they first delivered it, they delivered us a Schoology sandbox, and we could put courses in there, and then finally the sandbox became the real system that you students were logging into. That was our test environment, and if we found troubles in the sandbox environment, they would fix them, or if we found troubles in the production environment, what students were using, we could test fixes in the sandbox environment first, and then they say, oh, that change has now been migrated also to the working system that you students are logging into. So when we went to Schoology, we went through this operational versus test environment. Here's a little diagram of the kind of things that happen in the test environment, the sandbox environment, on a virtual machine perhaps, where this is running on another virtual machine that is exposed to the internet. This may be behind it or on a separate IP address, and we have perhaps some of our users even run through test data. Whenever there's a change to the current operational delivered system, it better be authorized and then run through some test data in the operational. Notice we're doing unit testing first in the sandbox. We then update the operational system, making a backup first, and then we again test it in the operational environment, because there's always going to be something different about the operational environment. You better test it there. And who was it that delivered a system? What was the recent crash of Windows? Yeah, CrowdStrike. It sounds like they had done some test environment things, but some changes had made it before perhaps these tests were done, and a bug or a change that crashed the system made it to the user's operational environment when CrowdStrike pushed out that update. Now I'm not sure. I would bet some people got fired with that. I'm guessing some procedures weren't followed, or some changes were authorized that hadn't actually been tested fully. So I would say whoever authorized those changes is probably the one who got fired, or definitely in probation for authorizing that change. And perhaps it wasn't quite documented. So they could go back and say, well, who authorized that? So if you're the coder, you run your test data, be sure you document that the test data completed or that the test had not been run yet. If there was a developer that said, oh yeah, the test was run and there was no documentation for it, they're going to be seen as it was not run, because it was not documented how it was run and what the results were. So any of this testing as you're doing, especially as you're going to production from the result of the test, changing the customer's environment based on your test, you better document every step of the way, when you did the test, what the results were, to prove that yes, it wasn't you that sent the broken code down to the customer's system. That's super important that you have that testing having been done. You even have to do this when you get a Windows update. There are IT groups in big companies. You do not roll out Windows updates. You don't have your system set to automatically update until you've tested it, especially on the server that runs that human resources or accounting program that make very clear in your test data that that has not broken the system, even if it's a simple, innocent-looking Windows update. Everything could cause a problem. Unforeseen problems coming in with seemingly innocuous little changes. Like, we're only changing the font here, could result in an unexpected crash. So every little change, document, and then have some sort of procedure for rolling it out to your customer. Here's something I'm going to have you discuss. Think about, as we look at these various ways of changing over to a new system, which of these would you choose if you're in charge in changing over from the old system that is being replaced? Okay? I'm going to ask each of you to decide which of these would you want to do. So the direct cutover is, let's change over from the old system to the new system. Next, on Monday when you come in, we're running on the new system. And the installers are scrambling over the weekend. And when they come in Monday, there may be a training class, or they've perhaps already gone to the training class to be ready for Monday. And the new system then is operational. That's the direct cutover. The other possibility is, okay, let's run both systems in parallel for a period of time, specified period, and we'll just maybe have a little safety that, hey, we're getting the same results, but we now need both interfacing and sending data and getting tasks done on both systems in parallel. Something goes wrong on the new system, well, we still have the old system working. Say you're processing your shipping, and you say, okay, we're running the old shipping system at the same time, run the new one, and verify that we're getting the same listing of things to ship from both systems. If there's a difference, go with the old one because you don't trust the new one yet. But run them both in parallel and make sure the new one is giving us the right results by comparing it to the old system. Or maybe you don't know. Maybe the new system is producing the better results. So you better check. If they don't produce the new results, find out which one had the right results. It's going to take a little more work. People are going to be putting in some overtime. But your customers are getting things shipped to them. You're not breaking, because if one fails, you can say, well, we can go back to our old system that we know was working adequately. Perhaps slower, but everyone knows how to use that older system. So the parallel operation versus direct cutover. That's not the only way. There's a couple other changeover methods where you say, okay, factory in Wisconsin, you're going with the new system, and you're going to be the pilot. You're going to be the guinea pig testing the new system at a selected location. We call it the pilot site. And we'll see how things are working. You get to be the testers of the new system. For them, it's a direct cutover. But for the whole company, it's only a pilot operation at one location. So if there's anything goes wrong or anything or improvement with the new system, only the pilot operation will see it. So a little safety there. You're not rolling it out to the entire company. Something goes wrong, you're not stuck. They can be the test, almost like a tester at the customer location. One more standard way of conversion is phasing it, where, okay, we're using this feature of it, and the delivery of the new system isn't all completed at once. You go in stages, where, okay, we're next semester only the computer students have this new feature in the Schoology system, and then as that's rolled out, then we say, okay, now we'll roll it out to the education students, and then finally, okay, we're going to roll out to all the schools, or all the students in the school. So phase it in either with modules or features, or who's going to be using it. Similar to Pilot, but it's in features rather than in locations. So now the choice is, which one would you prefer? Abby, which one would you prefer?
I think phased is like, it would just be more stable.
phasing in features, feeling more stable for you. John, what would you choose?
I've seen pilot operation, and as long as you choose a couple of good pilot locations, it's reasonably successful.
You can do the training just at the pilot location. You can see whether the training is adequate. So you can test out the whole rollout procedure, and you can pick the pilot, maybe reward them for being willing to go through the. There's always going to be extra work in the changeover. They could have some reward, some incentive for being the pilot.
And it's kind of like dependent on your organizational structure.
Yeah, yep.
Like if you're like, I don't know, I think like a fast food restaurant versus like maybe like the military. Because like the military might want to do it in something like phased operation, where it's like, okay, we're gonna have this change, and then we're gonna slowly change everything out. While like a restaurant might have like a pilot location, like I don't know, I'm thinking Chick-fil-A expanding into Canada, like they're gonna have their pilot location for expansion, and they're gonna like tweak the other new locations in Canada based on.
So the management, it's kind of the management mindset. What do you think, Harley?
I would go with the phased operation.
Phased?
Yeah, because I think bringing in the stages is easier for people as well.
Okay.
So they're not overwhelmed by the new system, and they can slowly get used to it.
Yeah, and the phases should be easier to handle piece by piece. A big changeover, that could be very disruptive. What do you think, Samuel?
Yeah, phase sounds good as long as the phases are gradual enough. Don't want to overwhelm them, like Harley said, with the new system. I can definitely see a danger of giving them this new thing that is maybe good, but they don't know how to use it. So I think I struggle with like training them on company time because it's like super expensive. Because not only are you paying them, but you're also losing uptime. And so that's where I kind of also like lean towards only doing it some areas of the company at a time, like one section of the company at a time.
All right. So pilot or phase, they're similar. The pilot, it's kind of like phasing it in at different locations versus features phased in for everyone, piece by piece. What do you think, Joel?
I would go with the phased operation as well, because as Abby said, that it's a lot more stable, and that's what you want for the company in the long run. You don't want instability sort of disrupting problems.
Why would someone do direct cutover?
If there's a major security breach,
they
would need to change immediately and no matter what. Yeah,
if it's a big change that really brings a great improvement, that hey, we just can't wait. We got to bring this direct cutover. It's a short amount of stress, and you're done. It's in what was the other one? The parallel operation. That is probably the most work. You're supporting two systems together. It's probably the safest. I'd say the safest is probably parallel. If it's really critical that, hey, we don't mess up, that there's data that comes out of this that affects a lot of people and it'd be very costly if we made a mistake, let's go parallel. I would think maybe in a hospital where you have a new treatment, diagnostic system, let's make sure that it's giving you're getting two results, and you can get like a second opinion from the old system if there's a very security critical or critical to someone's life or a lot of money. So management, again, if management is very cautious, you might go with the others. If they're more, hey, let's get it done, be done with this, more the market, we have to keep up with the market, we got to do the direct cutover. So it's the aggressiveness, the willingness of the risk, how much risk you're willing to take. Which is easiest from the developer's point of view? What do you think from the programmer's point of view? Which is easier? Phased, cutover, direct cutover, parallel?
Pilot, because it gives you a little bit of that agile kind of feel where you have somewhere where you can test your theories, and then only if it's having issues do you need to make adjustments to the program.
Now, if you're the developer for both the old and new system, the pilot program is going to be similar to parallel. You're supporting the new as well as the old. Same with parallel. If I were a developer, I'd want the direct cutover. Let's go with the new software and make that work. And if there's mistakes in it, well, we'll fix them quickly. But we don't have people working still on the old system, supporting bugs. Let's get everyone on the new system and learn it as fast as we can. On the developer side, the direct cutover may be the easiest. Phasing in, that may be easy. You're like you said, the agile piece by piece. That may be attractive to the developers as well. Running in parallel or pilots, you're supporting both the old and new. It depends, of course. Again, there's the big money decisions. Management and profits are big. So the direct cutover is usually the best for profits. We spend the least amount of time supporting the old system and the least amount of time getting the new system to work. We just jump right in. We're going over that fence, and we're going to live with what we get and fix it and be ahead of the game of all the competition. They're phasing it in. Look, we got ours in. We can complain. We can claim that, hey, we're ahead of everyone else. Look, we got the whole system working. And hopefully the whole reason that the new system is the new system is promising better profits. You get those better profits as soon as possible. The direct cutover is going to get you there quicker. The others are safer. So it's risk versus reward. So it's like you said, it's a management approach. Are we willing to risk? If you trust the developers and you've had experience with them, you might say, that pilot went really smoothly. There were no errors. You are really good programmers. We think that we can do direct cutover this time because they have a reputation for writing great code. So direct cutover is going to be best for management if it works. If there's phase, or pilot, or parallel, that's basically managing the risk. So data conversion is a big part of your working as well. You have old systems, and you're bringing in data from the old system, bringing it into the new system. We'll discuss, the training plan I think is pretty obvious. Let's go to the homework, and we'll come back to the training plan as we think of the data conversion part. Since the data conversion part is mentioned here, I just feel like let's jump to the data conversion part of your homework, and then we'll come back to the finishing the rest of the installation steps, which is the end of this chapter. So let's bop over to Schoology, and I'm going to bring that over here. Let's bring up that assignment plan, and let's go through this data conversion part. Let's get John Smart logged in. He's not logged in. Here we go. And let's go to the proper course. Oh,
What's J Smart's GPA?
I don't know. He's not doing too good. He doesn't turn any of his assignments in. He's pretty lazy. Where'd my course go? Down here in chapter 11, 2 things to do and to deliver. An access database, that is the data conversion little task, and a Word document with the implementation schedule, including the things that would happen in implementation. So not super hard. We've done the Gantt chart. All I'm asking you to do is basically build a Gantt chart, and look at this. I'm even giving you permission to use AI to help you lay out some testing and implementation schedule. You have to do the work to put in a Gantt chart using the Gantt chart. No handwritten Gantt charts and no spreadsheets. I want a Gantt chart from Gantter or the other programs that will help provide you a Gantt chart. And it can't just be a link to the Gantt chart online. You must have it in your document. You could provide the link to it if it's an online link. But let's do the data conversion part first. Let's go ahead and see what data we have to convert, and then we'll decide what platform to convert it into. So you get to even choose either it has to be a database that has something in it, has a user table in it, because we're going to get information about new users or the old users that now need to be put into our new system. So let's take a look at this data first and download it to our course. downloading it to my Fall 24 assignments and data conversion, and there I have it in my file there. So I've saved this Excel file. So go ahead and save that Excel file. And now we have to decide what data we have that is our new system that we're converting this data. So this is our pretend old data from our old system. We're going to do the data conversion into our new system. So let's start an Access database that has some sort of a user table. If you already have one from your test plan, let's see, I think, didn't we create a user table? Let's bring up Access, or let's say, I'm going to browse over to that file location and see what I have for databases there. Because I want to bring in data into that. Let's see, we have our DB Bible, and here's my Bible DB version 2. Do I have users in there? Yes, I do have a users table in my Bible DB. Now, if you don't have the Bible DB with a users table, that would be the new system that I'm going to be converting data into. Let's just see what we had in that users table. I have username, password, user ID in my table. Let's look at the design view. It gives me a better idea of what I have there, and let's zoom in on that or expand that a little bit. I have users, username, password. Oh, I don't have their first and last name. I have this information for users in my current, I'll call this my new system. I have the old data from my old system. So if I have a list of names, somehow I need to convert them to usernames, assign them passwords, and I guess everything else here I could probably assign default values to. Suppose I'm going to do a new database, just from a pretend database that I have. I'm going to use the Access and go with templates that are available for me that have some users table. I think I suggest in the homework you could use the students example database from a template. Let's just see what that has. I'll create a students template. I'll call it students from template, and I'll save it in that same location just to keep my files organized here. Students from template, I'll create a students database in there, and now I click create. And let's see what's in that database, pretending this is my new system. I have student list. Let's see, I do have a students table. Let's close my student list right now, and let's look at my students table. And let's look at the design view. I have last name and first name, some student ID I could be assigning, home phone, mobile phone. Oh, I do have address, city, state. So it looks like this has information, a little bit more information about users. I think I will say I'm going to do my data conversion, bringing in the old list of students into my new student system. So I'm going to use this one because it has what looks like good information, and I know in that Excel file that I'm keeping track of the old students. It's been dumped from the old system, doing the data conversion into here. So here's my plan. Let's look at the design view of this table just to see what I have in here. Here's all my fields, automatically assigning a student an ID for students, last name, first name, email, home, phone, address. We'll see. Let's see now what we have in our old data that we want to convert over. So this looks like a good database to work with. Generated from the template. Oh, and it doesn't have any new data yet, so I'm converting it into the new system. I don't even have some test users in here yet. Most likely, if it were a new system and it's been unit tested, I probably would have some test students 1 through 100 just to verify schedules and things work or whatever is happening in this particular system. So let's pretend this is my new system. I want to convert the old data over, bringing in my list of students from the old system. So here we go. Let's go to the old file and see what we have over there. I'll browse over to that. My File Explorer. Where's my File Explorer? There we go. File Explorer here. Let's browse over to that. Let's take a look at what we have in that Excel file. Before we even try importing it, let's see what's there first. Double click on that, and I see this in my Excel file. And we'll be practicing some of our Excel skills. I see, let's go to the very top line. I see I have column headings, and I have some users. Is that the right? No, that's not the file you got. That's the one I messed with already. Let's go get the original one. I've already fixed that. I want to show you how to fix it. Let me go back and get the original. Here we go. Download that. Save it in my cs412. I've already messed with it. I want to show you how I fixed that file to look right. Here it is. Data conversion, student names and location, changeover. All right, now let's open that one. There we go. Here is the old data. Enable editing. Now we have, I can get rid of 3D maps tours. I don't need that there. Here is my heading row. I have data, full name, each student listed with first name space last name. In my new system, I am expecting last name and first name in separate columns. So before I bring this into my new system, I want to go here and massage the data before I bring it into my new database so it has first and last name in separate columns. How do I do that? Do you remember how to do that? I can select the column and go to Data, Text to Columns. Excel will actually help me do this. Let's see what happens if I try to do text to columns. I tell it, oh, here's my data. Yes, I think it's delimited by a space in between first and last name, so I'm going to go next. And it's not splitting into separate columns yet. If I click space, oh look, it knows how to separate that into two columns. So a space delimiter is all I need. I don't even think I need tab to be checked, and I'll get two columns separating the data. And it gives me the first 200 lines. Oh, it looks like it's going all the way to the end. And I click next, and I'll put that in my new, I can decide where this is going to go. This is going to go into, I'm assuming the B column. Let's click finish and see what happens. Uh-oh. Because it's going to split into multiple columns, it's warning me it's going to wipe out column B. So if I do OK, column B now got wiped out, and I don't know where they live anymore. So I Control Z that, and what I want to do is before I do the data conversion, I want to make some room here. I'm going to right click, insert an extra column, and just to be safe, I'll insert another extra column. So if this does get converted, it can wipe out columns B and C without a problem, and I won't lose their location. So let's try it again now. Column A, let's do text to columns. It's delimited. It remembers my last choice of delimiter. And let's just click next and decide, yes, I want both columns. I could decide not to import particular columns. I'm treating them all as general, which is safest, and I click finish. Look at that. I have all the names brought in, and I'm going to call this LN for last name, FN and LN for that column. But before we go to convert this to separate columns, let's see if my data got converted correctly. Oh man, we have these people that like to have two names for their last name. This is going to be a problem in my system because I only have one column that I'm going to want to enter. So I'm going to manually edit this and put the last name here, rather than trying to fix the import part. What just happened? I can manually edit the data, and since I don't have a huge amount of data, this manual editing is not going to be a problem. Here's our van people. I'm going to fix their last names for the data conversion. And you can imagine, with a large amount of data, this can take some time. And for a system that we were talking about a while back, what is going on? Are those power glitches going on with that there? At least it didn't shut my computer down completely. My monitor, my monitor lost power. So only 4 names to fix in my data conversion. So I'm massaging the data before I'm bringing it in. I did lose a couple other programs, or they just get iconified. Let's see. Oh, the recording is still working. Did you see any power glitch on yours? Yes, Abby.
I don't think when I did that process, I didn't get like the last name of Van and then one word. It didn't like move over.
Did you select the entire column when you did the
Yeah.
convert? I made it easy just to select the column header.
Oh, now it works.
Okay.
I just haven't done it.
Now I want to do the same thing with location, and now that I fixed column C, I'm going to go ahead and just delete column C because I don't like to have extra columns laying around. Now I want to convert this, and I see it should get split into city and state. Let's add a couple extra columns just to make sure the country doesn't get wiped out, and just another one for safety. I can always go back and delete if I have too many blank columns. Now let's click on column C and convert that from text to columns. It's delimited by a comma this time. And I can change it to comma from space, and now cities with spaces in their names will get treated as one city. So only the comma is what's separating city from state, and that looks like the data was consistent in the old system. I'll click next and finish to just see, did it get split properly? Zip down through all my data. It looks like that did okay. So before I even try to import the data as given, I can massage it, and I'll put state here, with proper heading columns, delete extra columns that I don't need. If I'm not going to deal with their code, or I don't like the column header, I'm going to name that zip instead of the long name. Okay, zip. Even though my old new system may not use a zip, at least I have it separated out. In our database course, we're seeing that this is making our data more atomic, something that can be separated out by state rather than having to parse through states later on. Now the data is in nice form. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and now this is ready for, or makes the import into the new system more convenient. I could import the data and then write a macro that separated out the first and last name to create the first name column. Just a big pain. Let's use the Excel skills to modify our data before we go to bring it into our new system. So now I've got the data ready to import, and now I can close this, and I'll use this new file to be our import into our new system to do my changeover. So I close that. I close this because I'm going to be importing data into it, and Access doesn't like tables to be open if I'm doing something else with them. So I'm going to close my students table. My plan is to bring the data into the students table. I could bring it into a new table, but since there's nothing in here right now, I'm going to try to import it. And maybe before I do it, I'm going to make a copy of the students table before I do my changeover, just in case something breaks. I'm going to right-click, copy, and then a Control-V paste, and I'll create a table. I'll call it backup of students. I'm planning to import the data into my students table just in case something bad goes wrong. And databases are like this. If something goes wrong, I want to be able to get back to the original. I'm going to make a backup of it before I now try the importing of the old data, the change over the data into my new system. Now we're ready to do our changeover. I can go up to the external data tab, and I'm going to get data from a location. I'm going to import data from a file that's an Excel file. External data, new data, from file, and now I go hunt for that file in the browse, and it takes me back to my documents. I have to go hunt back to where it was. You'd think it would start in the location of the database, but no. It sends you back to documents. There's my file. I have edited it from the original, and now I'm ready to import it and append copies, not to the backup of students, but to the students table. And if it breaks, I've got the backup there. So I'm pending the copy, pretending that I've had test data in my students table, and now I'm ready to bring in the old data from the old system, doing our data conversion. And I click OK, and now I can walk through the data that sees in that file. Yep, it's in the worksheet. There's only one worksheet in there, making it easy. I click Next. It does recognize that there is a header row. It's expecting a header row. Notice it's not letting me choose. I have multiple columns. I think on the next page I can decide, do I want these columns and where do they go? I click Next. I'm going to import it into the table Students. Oh, it hasn't told me the mapping of what column goes where, so I'm a little confused. I was expecting it to ask me where to map each column. Let's see if this gives me different options. It's supposed to let me decide how to map each column. Look at this. It's not assuming. No, I don't want that. It's feeling like it's not knowing. It's going to give it a field 1 and field 2. It's not letting me decide my first row contains column headings. I'm not terribly happy with this. It doesn't seem like it's working right.
That's really strange because mine let me do that.
I'm going to cancel and try this again. Let's try this. Oh, is it because I don't have it open in Excel? No, Excel's not open. Let me try this again. Data, external data from Excel. Go over to that folder. I wonder if it only does, well, you'd think that it would let me choose what columns things go into. Let me go try this again. Students. The table is not open. Making sure it's not open. Yeah, the table's not open. And I have to browse to that file. There it is, the file. It's not letting me choose headings. It does contain headings, so I would have made that choice. But it's not giving me the choice of what columns and where they go. Are you getting the mapping selection? Let's find out. Maybe it will map it. I'm thinking it's going to map it to completely new columns. Let's see what happens. Yep, it's trying to create new field names, and it's not letting me import it the way I'm expecting it. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cancel. I'm going to save that data. I'm going to Excel and save it to a CSV, and maybe it behaves better if it's a CSV. I'm going to do a file save as, and I'm going to save it to the same location and save it as a CSV, MS-DOS CSV, and then close Excel. And where's my CSV file? Refresh. There's a CSV file. Now I'm going to try to import from that and see if it behaves better. Wasn't expecting it to be this hard. You don't find out until you try some things. append to students table. Oh, not settings table, students table. Browse to the file. Oh, sorry, I told it the wrong kind of file, didn't I? From file, text file. There it is. And now let's see if it does the proper letting me find out the columns. Let's try comma. Yep, it's seeing that. First row contains field names. Now I should be able to, let's see if it gives me some mapping. So I have field names, but I'm going to be needing to map them to new field names in the students table. It is not letting me choose my mapping. Maybe it's in the advanced. Let's try the advanced. Does the advanced let me do mapping? Field information. Uh-oh, it looks like I have to give it the same field name. Let's see what happens. I think I might have to give it the same field name as in my current students table. And I can tell it which fields to skip. Looks like that's what I'm going to have to do, because I bet you right now, if I say OK, it's going to complain about field names. Oh, maybe I could give it different field name. Maybe this is my mapping. FN. What is it in the students table? Is it first name? I have to get it just right. Looks like it's not going to help me here. I'm going to cancel this and come back to my CSV file and make sure my field names match exactly the field names here. So let's go to the CSV. I'm going to edit it in Notepad. And this is going to be replaced with first name with a space. So first name. Oops. Last name.
Here's a thought. Might it be easier to do that in the actual Excel document?
Yeah, but I'm gonna, since I have it there, I'm gonna skip the Excel document. Last name, first name. Email address we don't have. Location is address. But yeah, I could have edited the Excel too. That's perfectly valid. And city, state. So this would be state, and let's give it exactly. Oh, it has a funny name. State/province. I better give it that same field name. I don't like that kind of field name, but I'll give the exact same field name. State/province. Yes, Abby.
The address, is that just for the city? Like your address?
Oh, you're right. Yeah, so there is no address. There's only city. Yeah, you're right. So that would just be city. Very good. Yeah, so it's not address, it was city. Yeah. We don't have their street address, so that's going to be blank if this import's right. And state/province and country, spelled with country/region. And zip/postal code. I hate these names for fields. I like camel case, no spaces, because I just know that gives you troubles. Alright, so this should now hopefully become my new columns, and hopefully it recognizes the columns matching the names in my current table, saving that. Why does it not want to save that? I want to save, oh, it's wanting to save other files. I just want to save this one. That one got saved. I don't care about those other ones in my notepad, multiple files. Okay, so the student names did get saved. Now I'm going to close that and go back to my access and try that import now. External data from file, text file, browse to that guy. That's the one that's been edited. Append. Let's see if our field names are going to get properly named by choosing that. Comma is my qualifier. Advanced. I am going to skip. No, I guess I don't need to skip. I do have those fields in my table. I don't need to skip any. And let's see if it will import to table. Why didn't I say students? I guess I could import to backup of students. If it works for backup of students, it'll work for students. So I'm going to click finish, and don't need to save the import steps. Let's see what my backup of students has in it. I don't worry about students. And yes, I'll save the changes to layout. Let's see what we have in backup of students. Look at that. The data got converted. It skipped all the fields that I didn't have in my old data. So if I actually want it to be perfect, if my new system actually needs to have an address in order for it to work properly, I would have to go update my data, find out what is the actual address, somehow inquire of the old system, can we get their address out of it? I'm not going to have you do that, but that would be a possibility in my new system. If it needs those fields, the conversion, basically what I'd say is I got all the information that the old system had. There may be extra work in now filling out the new fields that the new system is not happy without having, or hopefully the new system is happy that it will work without it being there. And the next time the student comes in, it says, please update your profile. New fields have been added to better track and better provide services for you, and nag the students to fill in that information, or not let them get to see their grades until they've properly filled this information and hopefully verified everything. So you can see this data changeover process. Just getting the data in is just one part of it. And let's see, did I get import errors? Sometimes if you do an import, you'll get an extra table called import errors. And I don't see one, so it looked like all the fields worked. And I got 207 students changed over from my old system.
I lost a bunch of data when I did it. Over 100
Did you have a table of import errors at all?
oh yeah.
Maybe check those import errors and see if there was a problem with the field. I have recorded all this, so you can go back and check anything that I did compared to what you did. I thought I had chosen the right table. What I'm going to do here now is in the new system, since I actually got the data into my backup of students, I'm going to rename my tables. This is now the backup of students. I can rename him, and I'll call it students.old, and I'm going to rename this to, oh, it doesn't like a dots in names. Okay, thank you very much. Students old, or call it original, and now I will rename this to students. Another reason why having a backup. Now that is the new students table, and whatever this system does, at least it has all the data the old system could give me. So this is just a little bit of a taste of what the changeover would look like for a system that contained a database table. And this was a fairly simple table. Just imagine a newer system with new table design. This changeover, for a particular system we were looking at back when we had Blackboard instead of Schoology, a college here had done a changeover. I forget what system they had converted to. The cost of the system was like 40 grand. The changeover cost was 50 grand. And they had a lot of students, a lot of years of data to pull in. The changeover cost was more than the new system. Now, that might just have been counting, just massaging the numbers back and forth. But the changeover cost, as on their bill, was a higher cost than the actual, here's the new system. Probably because they were buying a a vendor system that the standard price with new data was 40 grand. If you had old data to convert, that's a whole nother company that does that part into the new system. A lot easier to work with a fresh system than converting over from old data. But that's what you're often stuck with when you're coming to a company. They have a well-working system, and now you're offering some significant improvements, incentive for them to buy your system. But there's the changeover cost because there's a lot of valuable data in that old system. Just being someone that has the expertise to do the changeover, that could be a career for you. You learn about legacy systems, how to change them over to new systems, is something that those new college developers, they don't want to learn that. They just want to go with the new code. Someone that knows the old code and is willing to learn the new code and do the changeover can do well with just helping companies change over. And if you're looking at that, I think I would, again, remember, buying is usually more efficient than building. Maybe you're building the new system, but you can hire someone to do the changeover because if they've had experience with it, they're likely to do a better job than you learning from scratch all the problems of, hey, what happened with that import? Why didn't it work this time? Why do I have to convert? And here's what, just a little example. I had to actually, in the old data, do the mapping of field names. I was expecting on the import that it would say, oh, map this field to the student name field. So that's something that, depending on what system you're working with, may be easier to import than others. I knew enough to go back and massage the old data, either in Excel or CSV, wouldn't have mattered. Do it in Excel. Maybe the import from Excel would have worked then. I wouldn't have to do the intermediate step of sending it to CSV. So that's your changeover, just a little example. If you've done this, you have done the first part of your homework, and all you have to do is deliver your database as one piece of that homework. You're welcome to add any comments about if you had issues with the changeover. Abby, did you get past your troubles you were having?
Yeah, I think when I did the import, I didn't select to have the top row.
Oh, okay, yep.
The names. So then once I did that, it was fine.
And notice it's actually safer to import into a new table. And then later on you could write a query then that transferred the data over. That would be a whole nother option. You could import into a new table, write a query that appended data from the old table to a new table, and do that part in Access. Since I saw that it looked like I could do it by just renaming my column headings, then I knew I didn't have to worry about going through another step of a query to copy data from one table to another. But that could have been another thing I could have done. So the changeover skills, that's one task of implementing a new system. So I'll close that database and empty my clipboard and can go back to the part about writing a schedule, a testing and implementation schedule. Well, you know what? I've given you permission to use AI. What if I did this? Copy that, go to my friend ChatGPT, and ask it to compose or design or come up with, develop, or not even say develop, give me a implementation schedule, containing, paste. And that. You think it'll give me something? Maybe I should say a sample example. I could even say with approximate task time looks like it's given me decent implementation schedule and some looks like reasonable amount of time, all you need to do if you're going to use AI is put this into a Gantt chart drawing program and basically enter this information, develop your Gantt chart, and see what it looks like, see if it looks reasonable. Unit testing, you could put actual module names in there. I didn't tell you module names, but you could use generic module names. So 6 months to finally deliver a system. Perhaps you want to say, hey, we have a delivery within 2 weeks. Say, give me a 1 month schedule to do all this, and then enter that information. Or you could tweak it as you enter this data into a Gantt chart. Notice you don't have to give it the start. Well, you could give it the start week. All you need to give it is the week to start and how long a duration, and then fill in the numbers. You could use these same titles if you like. And if you want to do it properly, you would say in your documentation, this table was obtained from this query to my friend AI to generate this implementation schedule. If you don't want to be accused of plagiarism, just say, here was the phrase that helped me get an example implementation schedule that I then entered into Gantter and produced the chart as that's contained in this document. This is helpful information. I didn't even ask for this, but this wouldn't be a bad idea. Throw this in there since it gave it to you. And then put your stamp on it with a nice, well, you can beautify it how you like. The more professional it looks, the better, like a cover page, a introduction. Here's an implementation schedule for a system that we're designing to provide a web-based Bible study software package, or if you have your system in mind. The idea with this is you can use this same schedule now in your capstone operation manual. You can say, based on our requirements, and perhaps give the module some names to go with your current system, here is the implementation schedule. And you've got a decent looking implementation schedule. In real life, you would be sitting down and figuring out these times and what has to happen in all these steps with the developers. But in this course, you're learning what needs to go into that, and AI is doing a decent job of giving us example information, and you're learning the skills of just dealing with a Gantt chart building program, the kind of information that goes into them, and AI is just helping you with the content of that. So let's just see, I'm going to do this. What do I have for Gantt charts? I think I have Gantter on here. I have Gantt project application. And Gantt project is offering an update. I'll go ahead and get the update. Sometimes they make the update easy. Sometimes they make you go to the website, download the new version, and do the install. They send you ads. Free download. Give me the free download. There we go, the exe installer. Going through the installer. You don't have to do the update if you see a notice for update.
Mr. Manning, we're having a little bit of trouble over here with a import for the access document.
Oh, let me help you out. First of all, let's see your data. What's your data look like? Either one. Are you going to use Excel or are you going to use the C? Okay, so you just change the heading our student's table. It's first space name, capital F, capital N. Let's go to this Excel file again. Is there a space after the first name? Let's go this time. Let's do the import, but import into a new table just to see what the new table will look like. And then we'll find out was it reading some strange character in there? Yeah, let's go into a new table to see if it's happy to bring it into the new table. And that should all look good, yep. And yeah, we're gonna ignore that anyway. Yeah, I let it happen. Yeah. Now let's see what's in there, see what the field names look like. As ID, first name. Yeah. Well, there's an easy solution. You can write a query that does an append. Just because for some reason it didn't fit that. You want help doing the append query? Okay, close that table then. And do a create. We're going to create a query first for design. And show the field or the one that name block that it just named. So that's the table we're going to get the data from. So double click on each field. You don't need the ID, go ahead and delete the ID. Click on the upper, the tiny little bar at the top there, now try it. So double click first name, last name, city, state, province, country, and then double click on your ribbon so we can see what's available there. Double click on the create tab. Now your ribbon stays open. Go ahead and change that into a query. Go to query design tab. And change that into an append query now. Now we get to decide what to append it into. So let's choose the students. And okay. And run. I don't know why the import wouldn't work, but and it would have complained that you didn't have a field name that matched.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'd say the import is a little buggy.
Yeah. At least I know how to do that
Yeah.
for next time. So it's good.
So multiple paths, mess with the CSV or Excel,
Yeah.
get it in and then convert it over.
One manual.
Yeah.
To exactly what
Yeah.
it's access, but it's still. Alright, thank you, Mr.
You're welcome.